Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Life or Biz Wisdom. And I want to talk to you about a topic tonight that, it's about procrastination, and it's something that affects, some people would say all of us, that it's part of our human condition. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but it certainly is for a lot of people. And I titled this video, why procrastination might just be your best friend. Now, I'm guessing you probably haven't ever been told that before. And if you had, you might have thought, what? And of course, that might be what you're thinking now, probably is. But of course, what I want to do is explain what I mean by that. So for those of us who do procrastinate, and of course, that might be for everything. And research suggests that, and there's this sort of saying that you've probably heard of, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Hello. And I think that may be the case. That may be the case for a lot of us, and it may be the case for a number of people, and for a number of different areas in our lives. But I do also think, though, that there are some people who procrastinate on only certain things. It may not necessarily be everything. It may not be their habitual way of behaving. What I'm talking about, though, is for those who tends to be a big problem because it's actually stopping us progressing in either our businesses or our lives generally, or in fact, both of those. And the thing that often happens is when we have that tendencies developed, we can be aware that we're doing it, but not always. We may not always be aware. But often, particularly if we do it regularly, we are aware that we're doing it, but we don't know how to stop it, and we don't know how to deal with it. And what can happen as a result of that, because then we lose control almost. And we know on some level, whether it's conscious or not, that we're actually not working at our best. We're not allowing ourselves to be who we really are meant to be, because whatever the procrastination is about, it's holding us back in some way. And what can happen, particularly when it's done repeatedly, is it can actually lower our self-esteem. We can start to actually feel ashamed and beat ourselves up about it. And when that happens, that is really demoralizing. It certainly can be. And it can then become this perpetual cycle where we actually end up procrastinating more. And it's like being on the hamster wheel. It's such an ingrained response that we can actually end up procrastinating even more. And this, of course, can be for all sorts of things. It can be for doing things in your business that you don't like. It can be at home. It can be, I know often when I talk about procrastination, the example I think of is doing our taxes or something, because we think it's going to be really boring or really complicated because we haven't kept our receipts and our paperwork for it in some sort of order leading up to tax time. Or it could be the cleaning of the house, knowing that, oh God, where do I start? The place is so filthy and that sort of thing. It could be catching up with somebody that perhaps there's some conflict or some level of unease with the person, and you might feel that know that you've actually got to say something, and that can be really scary. And so we can put it off. We can put off either telling them or maybe even seeing them. So it can happen, of course, in lots of areas of our lives. But when we, as I said, when we start to beat ourselves up, that's when I really feel that procrastination is something that we want to be dealing with. Now, having said that, what I want to say is that it's as if procrastination is in its own way a gift. And that is because it's actually telling us something. It's telling us something about what it is that we're procrastinating about. And that thing relates to our own sense of who we are. So if I think of an example being building our businesses and procrastinating about doing the next thing that we know that would actually help us in building our businesses, but for whatever reason, we procrastinate about it. Now, procrastination often is fear-based. Probably most of the time, that's what it is. And whether we're conscious of it or not, and quite often we're not, it's like we hit that ceiling of, or that limit of, and that fear that comes with that of, I'm not able to do it. And often we will make up excuses and come up with all sorts of reasons why we can't be doing the thing. It might be, I'm not in the mood now. I've got to just do this thing. This is urgent. Somebody's so sorry. I got a phone call. I actually put it on Do Not Disturb on my Facebook Live. Isn't that annoying? Anyway, apologies. So yes, we can come up with all these excuses. But what I invite you to do is when you are aware of your procrastination, and if you do it often enough, often there'll be telltale signs. And first of all is to raise your awareness about what those signs might be. When you start to get these excuses coming in, when you realize that what it is that you want to be doing, you're actually not doing, that's the time to become more aware and start to unpack what might be happening. Because as I said, it's wanting to tell you something. So it might be that it is fear. It might be that it's really difficult, or you perceive it as being really difficult, and you don't know what the next step is. Because if we don't know what the next step to doing something is, then we're just going to, understandably, we're going to put it off. It's like, well, we can't do it. We literally can't do it because we don't know how to do it. It might be that we think that it's boring. And we tend to naturally, the human condition is we want to move away from what we think is boring or, not enjoyable. We're much more motivated, of course, by things that are a lot more fun. It can be that there are things underneath that, though. Why might it be boring? And yet it's actually important, or it can be important, and we may well know that if we did it, we will be progressing in some way in our lives. So what I invite you to do is to, first of all, set the intention to raise the awareness around what happens as you're about to procrastinate, as you're just starting to. Set the intention that when this happens again, I will stop and take notice. And if you're able to sit down and really be still with yourself, a form of meditating, and asking yourself, going inwards and asking yourself, what is it? Thank you, Tricia. That's a good idea. Yeah. It's not easy. It can be a real challenge to actually even become aware of when we are procrastinating. But the more that we set the intention to have the awareness, the more awareness we will start to get. So once you start to see there's something happening that's going on, I'm about to procrastinate on whatever that might be, I invite you, as I said, to sit still. I tend to go into meditation and that closed eyes, taking the deep breaths and sitting with it and asking myself, why am I doing this? And when I've done this myself, often it's been fear. So what is the fear about? Is it about fear of failure, which is commonly a reason for procrastination? And if it's a fear of failure, what is that about? And I really invite you to, and it might be that you need to do it over a couple of different times, of unpacking what that might be and sitting with it and exploring what are the reasons that you are scared of failing. What do you think is going to happen as a result of that if you were to fail? And also what I really like to do is to journal. Some people will do drawing, and that's wonderful too. In other words, it's allowing yourself that avenue for expression to be able to explore in a loving way without any of the shame that I was mentioning before. This is an exploratory process to get to know yourself so much more deeply. But do it with love and curiosity, because that is what will help us with unraveling what is, as I said, what it is that procrastination is wanting to tell us. So as I said, I invite you to do this on a number of occasions. And if you procrastinate on more than one thing, do it for each of those things. Now, if it's a minor procrastination that's doesn't happen very often, then of course don't worry. But particularly if it is something that you do procrastinate as a tendency quite often, or if it's something really big that you're procrastinating on, and you know that you are procrastinating and that there is this hurdle that you need to get over, or you want to get over. This is the thing. We don't choose procrastination. Not usually. Unconsciously we do, but not consciously. And that's why giving ourselves the time to unpack what it is, because the reasons behind procrastination are actually the opportunities for you to learn why it's happening, what are the beliefs that you have about yourself with regards to whether it's fear of failure. It can also just as equally be fear of success. Or if you think it's boring, but it's an important thing to do, exploring why is it that you think it's boring? If it's the housework or something, maybe that's not such a big deal. As in, I mean, you don't want to have your house get really untidy, but often this is to do with the bigger stuff. And eventually, I know that if you do this often enough, you will start to be able to come up with some answers. And the thing is, when we understand ourselves most, when we come up with some of these answers, then we know what we're dealing with. Then what might have been unconscious is conscious. And if it's conscious, we've got much more of an understanding of it. And then we can put into place ways of getting around it. And using baby steps. Because the thing with procrastination is there's a lot of energy behind it, and there's often a lot of resistance. And so if we chunk things down, as we say in NLP, to the smallest little thing to move yourself forward, that minimizes the fear, minimizes the idea of boredom, minimizes the what might be frustration if that's holding you back, so that little by little you can actually start to do the thing that you've been procrastinating about. I honestly, absolutely believe that something like procrastination gives us the clues about our lives on a much bigger level. What's holding us back? And within that is the key, the answer, and the way forward that we can get around this. So as usual, any comments, any questions, please put them in the comments section. And I invite you I'm going to actually put my booking link in the comments below. If you would like some support with this, I appreciate that it's not something, if you've never done this before, if you've never thought about procrastination this way, or about using curiosity and journaling and meditating to be able to explore the issues that you have in your life, then I invite you to book an exploratory session with me, and I'll put the link in the comments below so that I can support you in unpacking this and moving forward in your life, because that's what That's what we want. That's what I want for you. I know that that is what you want for yourself at your highest level. It is what your soul is wanting for you. With that, I will say namaste, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.